This is Brownie's Podcast!
Degenerates, welcome to Brownie's Podcast, and it's grand final week, but it's also known as Jonathan's Cash Bonanza Week.
Right, are you ready to go? Because you're my driver for the week, considering you lost that bet, Port Adelaide versus Brisbane.
I gave you one day. I gave you Thursday. And yes, I've got a means of transport that you're going to be very impressed by.
What have you got on Thursday, JB? Have you got a busy day?
Well, I kept my schedule open, which I'm very happy about now, because obviously there's a surcharge that going on all my appearances this week. And I'm glad I haven't committed to anything prior to this week, but now obviously the Brisbane near it, little surcharge. You know, when you get an Uber home on a Saturday night, it's late, like I did back from Juddy's place last week. When we got a little bit carried away.
Speaking of Juddy, he's in the studio. I can't believe I'm looking at you.
Dino, good to be here, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
How are you, mate? It's Brownlow Day. Hey, you just go around like I am doing surcharges all week. You just go around making appearances today.
Well, I had the same feeling about you in Carlton with 6 goals up in the first quarter and staring down the barrel of, I was looking at 06 prices there for a little bit of time, JB, but we're back to being unwanted again.
How about FevCam? Did you like FevCam?
FevCam, he was pumped. I did have this moment where
what a nuffy, just out of, in the outer. I thought he'd surely be in the corporate box.
We were high-fiving halfway through the first quarter. It was the sort of high-fives you do with 3 minutes to go late in the game. I did look around and have a moment. May have gone a little bit early here.
Juddy, you won a Brownlow at 21 years of age in your third season. What advice would you be giving someone like Nick Dacos, who's 20 in his second season, if he does go on and win it tonight?
There's plenty of time for drinking post-speech, Brownie. That'd be my main advice. You don't need to cram it all in at the start.
Where did you finish that first one? What year was that?
2004.
So you weren't in the grand final, no?
No, it was Brisbane.
Port
grand
Brisbane,
final.
that's right. I should remember that.
So, yeah, it was it's a bloody long time ago now. But I guess assuming as Nick's in the grand final, probably won't be drinking a bucket load of piss, Brownie. But you never know these days.
Juddy, when did you... By the way, your eyes are so clear. How healthy are you, by the way? I think you're going to live to your 120 at
Thank
least.
you, Dean. I'm thinking lean. So I've been doing a little bit of keto.
Really?
My issue with keto is I do keto Monday to Thursday.
Okay.
And then I invariably tell people about keto, which is a diet where you don't really eat much carbs.
Yeah.
And as I'm telling them, it'll be on a Saturday as I'm drinking beer and eating pasta, and they're looking at me like I'm some sort of fraud. But yeah, keto light, it's been not a bad little...
the bottle and a half of scotch you ripped into me the other night, and you've dropped a couple of cigars on me late.
That was on Saturday. So keto to Monday to Friday lunchtime. Then all bets are off. Then over Sunday we regroup, we have a look in the mirror, so you can do better, and then I have another go for 6 days.
Right.
You're telling me I cannot be a fat if I do keto Monday to Thursday.
Fat's a hard word, Dino. Rubenesque is how I describe it.
you.
And
I like that.
Mate, you're surprisingly good because you can eat as much cheese, salami, nuts, a lot of good stuff you can eat, and you can eat as much of it as you want.
Yes.
And the weight does drop off you.
That Meredith goat's cheese.
That's part of it. Get that involved in the repertoire.
I remember we used to...
Are they a sponsor? Because that was just rolled in there.
They've been sending him free goat cheese for years.
So the reason I worked out how, Brekkie Radio, the early days, we dropped Meredith goat's cheese in the first week, Dino.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, 1 kilo tub of Meredith goat's cheese. And I just realised when I looked at the fridge this morning, I thought, actually, you know what, we're just running dry on Meredith goat's cheese. So I thought maybe an opportunity on the Brownie's podcast.
We're going to probe Juddy, but let's quickly get to the games over the weekend. Just listen to this noise.
Listen to this noise. Collingwood are into the grand final.
Hey, instant fireworks new.
That was new. Those fireworks caught me by surprise on the broadcast. Yeah, where'd they come from?
It was AFL organised. I was down at the MCG today. Stewie Fox and his crew, they had nothing to do with it. The AFL took over.
But why would they do that?
Well, it was a Collingwood home game, and I think they wanted some festivities. Just
there you go.
It's better than those silly songs Brisbane are playing after the
That's
goals.
true.
There's got to be an independent investigation.
What's wrong with Johnny Denver holding out after Charlie Cameron's goals?
I thought that was the best umpired game of the year. I know that a lot of the GWS and neutral fans thought that it was, shocking.
Disagrees with you.
But some of those ticky-touchwood free kicks that usually get paid in the home and away season, they weren't paid.
To be fair to Lethal, two of the ones that Lethal was talking about, men got their necks hooked. And the umpire said,
the Toby Green one, he ducked into that, so I was happy that they called play on. They missed a couple, in the middle of the ground, the De Goey holding the ball and a few, but they were 12, 13 minutes before the end of the game. So it's not like it cost GWS the match. They still had plenty of time to kick it behind. You know what I mean?
That last minute when there was 4 stoppages in a row right in the middle of the ground, it felt like rugby, just people trying to get yardage. It was wild.
Yeah, it was smart by Collingwood. They were able to shut the game down. They obviously went into that sort of in front on the scoreboard late in the game scenario, and they did it really well. It helps having Scott Pendlebury out there. He's like a traffic cop, just organising everyone around there, and they were very good.
Jody, what do you reckon about the Pies?
They were good. I thought GWS were brilliant as well.
Yeah.
They should be pumped with how they finished off the year. They'll be dangerous next year. I actually agree with you, Brownie. There's a lot made of the umpiring. I actually didn't notice it watching it. And I felt there were quite a few 50-50 ones, which I reckon this time of year, they generally get going. I think it's better for it.
You've got to be careful to look at the number, Dave, because Lee's big thing was there was only 24 free kicks paid for the game. So let's say 12 each, which is a low number, but I don't mind that. I never like to look at the free kick count in total to sum up the umpiring.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
You just got to read the game. And I think, on balance, don't you? Certainly as players, we preferred to let the game go.
Less is more. Yeah, we're critical of them if it's over-analysed and over-officiated. And I thought, honestly, as a neutral, and I didn't care who won, I was just watching the game as a football lover, I thought it was really well umpired. In particular, the last quarter, where possessions were hard to come by. You don't just want to give someone a free kick for something innocuous. But isn't it funny, like if Toby Green gets a little bit more on that snap from the boundary and it goes through for a goal, it's one of the greatest goals of all time from the captain that's just put his side into a grand final, gets marked on the line.
Yeah. He wouldn't want to watch the behind the goal.
No, I know.
His teammate, Daniel Lloyd.
But in the moment...
He's out directly in front, but you can understand the pressure of the situation. I'll tell you where the umpires got it wrong. Mason Cox had a ripped jumper, half a ripped jumper. He was sent off. Now, Devon Robinson from the Brisbane Lions against Collingwood a few weeks ago, he ran around for 10 minutes without a jumper, without anything
and
on.
got 70,000 followers on Instagram. Keeps going up on Dev.
It's amazing.
I saw Big Mason at the ice hockey yesterday. The NHL came to town. Big Mason.
It was big, wasn't it?
Dropped the puck. He dropped the puck in the middle. Yes. He's a puck dropper.
Wow.
Another sweet thing I saw was Maynard kicking the footy before the prelim in a park with some kids.
Did you?
That's sweet.
He's
With
a sweet
kids.
guy.
Yeah.
He's on a PR campaign now.
Yeah,
is he?
probably.
Grassroots footy. He's trying to pick up spots. What, out the front of the G?
No, it was I think in Richmond, just kicking the footy. Hours
Good on
before.
him. Actually, it was a good matchup between him and Toby Green.
Yeah.
And
Does he get Charlie Cameron?
I don't know whether it's... I
Quainer
feel
would
like
be a nice matchup. Is he too valuable, Quainer?
Well, you need leg speed, don't you?
I'd go
If you're
Quainer.
playing on
I
Charlie.
feel like Maynard on Rayner would be a better matchup.
okay.
So Charlie Cameron's a difficult matchup, I reckon. I think the Lions match up right against them.
Jonathan, when's your first cashy?
I've already done one. So, like, and I was, look, through the books stuff is no good to me this week. Oh, no. So I say to people, I've been via Woolworths or Coles. And
the ATL are going to you if they listen to this.
I've grabbed that, the old sandwich bags, the brown paper bags. So I've got a whole heap of them in the car. So
just don't do what Billy Brownless did: bury it and then sell his house and forget about it, and go back there when the new people have moved in with a bobcat.
Shovel.
Yeah, the
That's
bobcat.
unbelievable. Yeah, there's lots of pollen in the air. You're going to see John blowing his nose with $20 bills, smoking Cubans on the couch tonight.
What about Brownlow Day for you? Is there such a thing as cashies on Brownlow Day?
I don't think so. I've actually got a lunch after this, but it's a non-cashy one.
Bullshit.
But I think there's a big scene yet because it's too early in the week for the corporates.
Yeah, it is.
I
isn't
reckon.
it?
I reckon it's Thursday. I mean, Friday going has hurt a lot of the cashy
yes.
operators. The
Yeah,
public
it's-
holiday. There's
Public
been
holidays are no good on Fridays, are they?
No.
All you can do is just get pissed at the TLA lunch. But all Juddy be doing is, imagine Juddy rolling around town on a Monday just talking about pressure point.
man.
You and Fev could do the run show.
the reenactment.
What's your memories of that night? Were you just trying to get away from him?
It's your
It
fault.
was a cyclone for Vola, wasn't it? He was on, the big fella.
It's your fault that he ended up in Brisbane. It's your
Is that-
fault, Chris Judd. I hold you fully responsible
I
for
have a
that.
feeling if the pressure point didn't get him that night, something was going to get him soon enough. I think the trajectory, if you graph the trajectory he was on, I think his time was coming to an end at the Blues, the big fella.
The dildo on Mad Monday was a nice touch.
Oh, that was elegant. That was really nice. Yeah. Johnny, what's your go-to cashy story? Like at Sportsman Night, what do you lean on?
I don't do them.
Smart.
I don't do them.
He's got enough issues with the taxman. A few Cuzzy stories.
Mate, you generally try not to tell those ones, JB. Sort of it's pending legal proceedings. You're never sure where the legal proceedings are at with a lot of the West Coast players before you can dive into them.
Yeah, it was certainly.
No, I'll come back to me, Dean. I'll have one for you by the end of the show.
I remember after the 06 Grand Final, everyone was drinking beers, but you were on the Cougar and Cokes in a can.
Was I?
Oh, jeez.
Hey, what was it? You tell you one that stood out to me because. Brisbane, we won the flag the first time we went back to the Gabba, and it was pretty amazing. There might have been 3,000 or 4,000 people turn up. One that stood out for me was when Juddy was the premiership captain in 2006. Yeah. Obviously, that Eagles would have been a nice plane trip home, I reckon. Long flight home, would have been a few shenanigans on the way home, as it was for the Lions boys.
Cockpit access, Juddy?
Or full access, I think. Yeah.
Hope there was no Ralph Fine action going on. We were talking about that last week of the podcast. But when you got back to Subiaco, the amount of people there when you walked out... It would have been
almost 100,000 people, it felt like.
Mate, it looked like it.
100,000, mate, a bit of a stretch. But the whole grass, the whole stadium...
The whole stadium was full, and the grass was full when you held the premiership cup.
It'd have to be 40 to 50, I reckon. Yeah, it was monstrous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Juddy,
Can you remember that, Juddy?
Yeah.
I've seen pictures, so I know that. I was just nursing into my third Cougar and Coke for the morning, and, which I'm allegedly told is true from Dino.
Right. That's an extraordinary drop.
I remember too much about it, but I remember you had like these Kim Kardashian sunnies as well the day after.
Yeah, they were sort of an aggressive sunglasses, which looked good. They were on trend back then. They haven't aged all that well, those sunglasses.
No.
I had the speed dealer ones on the Arnett.
Mate, have you seen it?
Wow.
Dog, they're
Have you seen the
unbelievable.
photo? Mate, it looks unbelievable.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever do the I'm not drinking much post grand final? Did you get to that phase of maturity after your third or anything? Or it was just...
Well, I was too young.
Yeah.
I was too young. But all I remember is the first one. It was like the end of we got to the Friday, and everyone just went home. So me and Possum, I've never been a flatter 19-year-old than me and Timmy Nottingham driving back from Brisbane to country Victoria on the Friday after the grand final, and I'm driving back just down the Newell Highway, going through Dubbo or something, going into the milk bar. No one knows who the I am. And I'm going, is this all it is?
So you're just upset that after 6 days straight of chipping piss, people finally wanted to break.
Well,
that upset you, did it?
Right. Mate, I thought we were going to go on tour for 6 months. It was going to be like the Beatles, just running around town.
Juddy, what was... You know we're going to ask about Cuzzy, because we just have to.
Yeah.
What were your... Because we know that he was partying pretty hard during those days.
Yes.
So when he'd rock up to the club, was he just all business and then like he'd piss off pretty quick after training, like much socialising? Or?
Mate, he was early doors, you just saw no signs at all. He's the hardest trainer. He was brilliant around the club, great with the young blokes. It really wasn't until the wheels were really falling off.
Yeah.
That everyone was starting to be aware that there was a problem. But he's going great. I caught up with him about 4 months ago for coffee. Awesome. He's working for a mining company, doing some work with Channel 7 as well. He's coaching his kids' footy team.
Wicked.
So it's a great comeback story at this stage. But it does show you how much culture's changed over the journey. I remember when he was captain and Quinton Lynch got done drink driving on a Monday night. You know, it was a different era, Browny. But
I believe with that story too, Judd, it wasn't just the cops pulled him over and breathed him. This was a wild police chase through the streets of Subiaco.
And
for Lynchy,
no, he didn't take off on him.
Allegations he was maybe doing some burnouts for an extended period. These are unproven.
Was he also wearing gloves at the time?
Then
He threw a glove out the window.
Then the cops came, and obviously the glove came off, and Lynchy started running. And he ran, and I'm told on good authority that he hid behind a bush, which is all of 1/2 metre high and 15 centimetres wide. And if you know Lynchy, he's 100 and something kilos. He's a big man that the bush is never in colour. Anyway, he was convinced because his eyes were also shut that no one would be able to see him. And the cops came up and gave him a fair touch-up, which was justified. Yeah. Anyway, I got to the training the next day, and Lynchy was just beside himself, as you would be, second-year player.
Bit flat.
And, you see the tears welling up in his eye. And Cuz came in the rooms, and everyone's thinking, I wonder how this is going to go. And he goes to Lynchy, as the skipper. Oh, well, at least you ran. At least you had a crack. and then that was that. But he copped his 1-match ban, which seemed like an enormous punishment at the time. I mean, you just about
you'd be out for.
You just about get a life ban.
Well,
now,
it was the era though. I certainly know. Geez, you would have to do a lot for Lee Matthews to suspend you, or the club to suspend you in that era.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even Mick Malthouse wasn't a big suspension operator. early doors?
No, I think they had the old theory, and it might have been from John Kennedy, certainly the Hawthorn days, of it, have to hire an axe murderer to win a premiership. That's what it costs. And it was an old mentality, no doubt about it.
I reckon the Stevie J ban at Geelong changed the game for
it
ban.
was.
6
6
weeks,
weeks,
he
was
copped a
it?
6-weeker and then came back and it turned him around.
What was
So-
the offence?
Is that
What
when
did
he?
he do?
Is that when he was at the Torquay pub
drive.
and he
Yeah.
jumped?
Hurt
off
himself,
the,
did he?
Yeah, he jumped
Well, he
off the
jumped-
balcony and broke his
both
ankle.
his ankles.
Well, he got kicked out, and then he jumped back in through the back entry over the fence. It was a pretty high fence, and landed and broke both his ankles.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Both
I think
of
it-
them.
I think
Iconic.
So it
damage
wasn't a
it.
6-week ban where he couldn't play anyway, because that feels like a bit of a...
Exactly right. That's why the 6-week ban came through. But it was. And they won the premiership that year. I
And he
think
won the Norm
2000.
Smith.
And he won the Norm Smith medal and declared it.
Jody, the game that...
Actually, I just on quickly, because I referenced Lee Matthews, and do you have any awareness of, remember that game when you kicked 5 in the first half, I think, as a midfielder, as a young man coming up against the Brisbane Lions?
gonna
What a
ask you about it.
powerhouse.
Yeah.
And because I remember them, you obviously wouldn't have been aware of what was going on in the meeting room across the hallway when we used to pay zero attention to the opposition, especially young blokes.
Yep.
It's we'd almost laugh at them. But I remember Lee Matthews referencing us before the game, and he had a circle around Juddy's name, saying, "Hey boys, now I know you boys don't care about young blokes. You don't pay any attention to young blokes, but he had a circle around Juddy saying, pay attention to this bloke because he goes all right."
Jody,
and
your
then
thoughts?
you came out and kicked 5. Do you remember that game?
Remember it well, JB, like it was yesterday.
That
But,
was the game, sorry, Jody, that was the game that put you on the map to everyone, on everyone's radar, especially us Eagles fans.
Yeah,
Who did you play on? Whose fault was it that day?
Brad Scott was involved at times, but I did always have a bit of shit on the liver about Brisbane from my first ever encounter against them, where we got I've told you this story, Jay. We got beaten by about 110, 120 points at West Coast. The plane on the way back home, there was a huge headwind. We had to land in Kalgoorlie to refuel. The first 90 seconds of this game, dog, I was started on Chris Scott. I ran in off the square off half forward, watching the ball. Brad Scott came across, bang, fair hip and shoulder, popped my AC joint. Then the ball got kicked over my head. I was tracking the ball. Chris got elbowed me in the chin, dropped me, split my chin open,
Really?
which I cut shaving for the next 5 years of my life. And I was standing back in the forward pocket, sort of shoulder up like this with AC joint popped, bleeding blood, and the waterboy came out to Chris Scott and gave him a drink. 90 seconds into the game, and he has a drink, and then he looks at me and I'm bleeding down my chin. He passed me the drink bottle and he goes, "Clean yourself up, you little bitch." And I was just stuck because I didn't want to grab the drink bottle because it was so emasculating being called a little bitch, but I didn't want to go up with the blood rule, so I just sort of avoided eye contact, grabbed the drink bottle and squirted my chin and then gave it back to him. It was a real moment that stuck in my craw.
So after that, you made a point of every time you played the Lions, I'm gonna stick it up on.
Good to get a few snags back on the.
He was. They were brutal. The Scott boys, Leper, Mal Michael. Those defenders were
They
brutal.
just come from
and
everywhere.
young
Chrissy
blokes.
Johnson as well.
Oh, yeah.
Chrissy Johnson was hard.
Yeah, he was crazy when it came to
They
that.
were,
yeah.
they were like hyenas to a carcass, weren't they?
Well, remember when they went after Nick Rewell?
Oh, yeah.
So really hurt his shoulder and
Round
really
one.
had the famous tears on the bench, and they attacked him. It was round 1 during the flag run, and the Scott boys and Mal Michael got
Yep,
stuck in them. I think. Yeah.
Juddy, you're part of the 2001 Super Draft. You went number 3, but there was conjecture that you were the number 1 draft pick. It was either going to be you, Luke Ball, or Luke Hodge. You do your shoulder in the Vic Metro game. How did that sit with you going number 3? Was that sort of something that you thought about and thought, I probably should have been number 1 draft pick to Hawthorn, or you sort
No,
of...
that sat with me fine. I mean, I would have loved to have gone to Hawthorn. Obviously, our great mate Steve Green was there,
Yep.
who's one of my best mates. Would have loved to have played alongside him. But I was just pumped to get drafted, to be honest. So that never weighed on me. There
Going
was
across to Perth, was that something that, you...
Is this open mic or something?
Sorry, at the time...
It's not open mic, but it's just a good question.
At the time, I would have loved to have stayed in Melbourne.
Yeah.
But you look back on the team I got to be a part of over there, which was just life-changing.
Yeah.
So it worked out bloody well. And you did realise once you were there pretty quickly just how significant a club West Coast is. And I don't know if people over on the East Coast have an appreciation. I mean, you've lived there and you know that footy club, it is just a monster
massive.
over there. So, that coupled with the sort of players you had to, use as behavioural role models. I still play with Glenn Jakovic, Peter Matera, Ashley McIntosh, let alone Cousins, Gardner, and then modern day greats like Coxie and Carey and Glassy and everyone else. So it was a pretty fortunate how it worked out in the end.
Juddy, who's more psycho, the Perth football media or the Victorian football media?
I think the most concentrated attention you get in the AFL would be West Coast and Adelaide Crows players. I think convincingly.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I remember walking down the street in 2007. We're into Margaret River, and people were yelling out, and I thought, geez, footy. And we were playing for the Brisbane Lions. And so I thought, imagine playing for the West Coast Eagles living in WA. That's when I got a full appreciation of how big it was. It was huge over there. So no wonder you want to get out of there, mate.
Mate, was there any signs at your time at West Coast Eagles that Daniel Kerr was into pyrotechnics or...
Hey!
Enough of that.
How good Sam Kerr?
She's great.
She's on fire.
She's... All right, mate. All right. Johnny, when did you realise that you were quicker than most and smarter than most with the football? When did the belief set in?
I knew I had good legs early, but then I knew they'd left me early too. I was early ripe, early rotten with the leg speed. By 23, I was sort of not a grub, but I won a lot of speed left. But made the most of the leg speed early doors, Dino.
First 10 metres is like on Mario Kart when you get the mushroom. Just bots.
It's a great feeling in footy when you confident you were quicker than the blokes around you. No doubt. I missed that. I missed that genuinely.
When you and Beck go on holidays, I noticed recently you're over in Dubai doing some stuff. Do you take a cameraman with you, or is that you that's having to film all that stuff?
I did recently get a few nights in Dubai for my 40th. It got me out of having a party, so it felt like a good trade. I got a few days kid-free and got me out of having a party. But the catch was I was a
of Instagram.
A proper husband of Instagram. And I generally avoid that. I both deliberately and just naturally take really shit photos. So the kids take much better photos, which stacks up. So then you stop getting asked. But there were no kids around. And I was on the decks and I swallowed my pride. I was even getting low, getting like the different angles.
They're very impressive. You put all us blokes to shame.
But the accommodation was pretty good, dog. And there's things you got to do.
I had dinner with Pang last night and he wanted me to pass on a few thoughts. He said, he's still filthy that no invite to Judge Chella back in the day. But he also wants to extend an invite to you to Burning Pang. When he does it.
Burning Pang never got up.
It'll get up, mate, because he's turning a big milestone soon.
He's turning 5-0.
That's when we'll do Burning Pang.
Absolutely.
Get weird in a field somewhere.
Right.
I'm always allowed one question per interview.
Yes.
It's a lot of pressure, bro.
Too many as well.
And
don't embarrass yourself.
Yeah, this is a good one. I've thought about this for a while. So, obviously, you got exponentially hotter when you shaved your head, when you lost the hair and you gave up the battle. And
I'm liking this question so far,
Wow.
Brady.
As someone that's
I can't even remember your hair.
as someone that's
Stratham vibes.
as someone, pardon me, who? Jack Stratham.
Jason Statham.
Jason Statham is what you're going for there, but that's all right. You're kidding me.
That wasn't even close.
Come on, dog.
As someone that's also battling the balding fairy, what age did you go, and do you have any tips for me?
I went too early, I reckon, in fairness.
you did too.
I think I probably had 18 months left in me.
Yes.
Well, he had twigs locked up, so he just didn't worry about it.
It was my mum that actually gave me the tap on the shoulder.
And said it's
It
time.
was like, it's time to go. My mum's one of those, like, big on the, hit you between the eyes with the honest convo. But I think she
So
cost me
wasn't
about
Andy?
18 months.
Wasn't Andy?
Andy's got a thick, luscious head of hair.
I was gonna say.
Andy Patani. But I reckon I had 18 months left in me. And then you've got the finasteride option now too, which people are using very effectively.
Doesn't that affect your willy, though?
There's some flaccidity issues, Dino.
Yeah, there is some.
They've got the blue M&Ms for them now too. So,
Welcome flaccidity to the show. That's a brilliant great word.
Mate, it's a great word. Didn't one of the soccer players get done for finasteride? He was going bald.
there's allegations, and again, I don't
John
know, too many
Aloisi
independent
or-
investigations. Nathan Brown got a clearance to take finasteride
Really?
whilst he was playing. So
Wow.
Did he also get a clearance to get his forehead made over? Have you seen Nathan Brown's forehead?
Botox.
Mate, it's more than Botox.
Yes, it's so
mate,
much.
absolutely. Mate, it's worse than Sammy Newman's when he had his
Wow.
done. Don't worry, mate, they have stretched the back.
A ball clip at the back.
Absolutely.
Are you saying he's had a facelift?
Mate, he's no doubt got a bull clip at the back.
Wow.
Come on, Juddy, you seem wrinkly.
it's a smooth looking forehead. It
It is very smooth, isn't it? He's got one hell of a makeup artist, or
He's
he's got a
looking
good...
I was with your old man on the weekend, and he's bald as hell. And
He
you
is,
could
yeah.
not have more hair.
Yeah, well, although Coles has thrown a few allegations towards me.
What? That you're thinning?
Well, she reckons I'm thinning.
What?
I said, have a look at this thatch. This ain't thinning.
Thatch is what it is.
Yeah. I think she might be having a word to Juddy to get me on the finasteride as well.
Finasteride.
Finasteride will kill me.
It's a snail poison or something. That'll work out well.
Johnny, you've brought credibility to this podcast.
What's the other word? Fluidity. Flaccidity. I got no issues there. I can't get rid of it.
Oh, yeah, all right, mate. All right.
No, I'm
No
just
one
saying.
else,
All
mate.
right, buddy. We get it, mate. We get it.
Who's going to win? Who's going to win the grand final, Johnny?
I think the Lions win.
Nice.
Yes.
Are you going to be there?
I'll be there. Yeah, I'm presenting the norm. So it would have been brilliant
Well
to have the Blues there. I reckon it would have been nice to make the captain's call with the norm. Wasn't voting on it, but presenting it. Mm-hmm. Once you've called the name out, are they going to change it back?
Yeah. Who did that famously?
Ross Glendenning did that for the Ross Glendenning medal in 02, where Ashley Samby won it. Ross
just
stormed
got it
out in the middle of the
retrospect,
oval and
didn't he?
decided he felt like Michael Gardner won it and read out his name, even though the votes clearly showed that Samby won it. So
It's amazing.
I felt it was time for me to make a courageous call like that, JB.
I would have loved
It's
that.
my medal. I'll give it to who I want. But I think Shampy just got it retrospectively.
Posthumously, yeah, that's right.
He's not dead.
Well, he's not dead, but that's what they do, isn't it?
Before we
I
let you
did the
go,
Norm Smith
Just a
last
reminder,
year.
our Samby's not dead for West Coast fans.
He's alive and
I
well.
did the Norm Smith medal voting last year. I was the only player that voted for Patrick Dangerfield. And for the record, I think if you watch the replay, I think a lot of people agree with me now. So,
Was anyone drinking who was voting, Jonathan, that you saw?
yes.
Oh, hang
Everyone
on.
else around me
Gee.
was drinking except for me. I was the one bloke that stayed dry.
Gee.
Thank you very much.
Well,
yeah.
Juddy's presenting the Norm Smith on Saturday. JB did the voting for the Norm Smith last year. I voted for the VFL best on ground yesterday. Sean Manor.
Well done, mate.
Who won, by the way?
Where
Gold
he got
Coast.
rolled by the
Football
Gold
won.
Coast Suns.
Football was the winner. Juddy, before you let you go, we've got to quickly talk about when you guys had that Brownlow, the tribunal connection.
Oh, we forgot about that.
Yeah, but we've spoken about this before. I don't think on the podcast, but
Just set the scene for us again.
well, down at York Park, Launceston, West Coast Hawks, West Coast beating us. I'm on the pack. I think I was on the top of the pack and might have been driving my elbows down into Juddy's sort of ribs or neck.
But you're being a dog.
No, I wouldn't say I was being a dog. I was just being Campbell.
Oh, it's okay then. All good.
And Juddy reached up and he got reported, I think, for eye gouging. That's how it went down, right?
That's something similar.
But then he rocked up to the tribunal to speak up for you.
That's right. And I think as a fairly clean player, genuinely, you sort of get one of those where they sort of go, this feels like a misunderstanding. Once you lob another one or two, and they're like, no, this place, we're gonna
no good, this
we're going to
bloke.
make an example here. So I think I was still in that phase. And the
unbelievable.
dog came in and gave a glowing reference.
I did,
And,
What
which
year was
appreciated.
this? 2000?
07. So Juddy was favourite for the Brownlow,
Yes.
and immediately
Was it 07,
they
was it?
halted Brownlow betting. And it was quite a big story when the Brownlow medalist is up on a tribunal charge.
Juddy, is this fair that I will let you go? I swear to God, is this fair that you were a better player for West Coast than Carlton?
I think that's probably fair.
Yes.
Probably.
I don't know
geez,
why.
I'm not sure the Carlton fans would agree with that.
I don't give a shit.
That final, they still talk about this final. Was it the one final that Carlton's won in the
2011.
last 10 or 15 years? 2011. Was it against Richmond when you just tore the hearts out of Richmond?
2013.
Oh, 13.
JB, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. Just a little correction there. That was
was
90,000. They always talk about that. I'm sick of the Carlton Nuffies talking about that bloody
Are
game.
you Carlton or are you West Coast? If
No,
you
I'm
had to
more
pick one.
Carlton. Yeah, I am. Which I don't know. I think it was more recent. And there's a different feel when you retire from a club than leave a club. It's a different exit
Yes.
exit plan. JB. So and still know a lot of people there. You know, there's not many at West Coast. I know. So yeah, definitely a Carlton operator.
Well, you're a big believer in saving the planet and environmentally friendly before the Visi deal, or that sort of just grew on you?
That was a different phase of my life, Campbell. I don't get a lot of thank yous for putting recycling on the map. You know, everyone enjoys the clean air, but they forget to thank me.
Drove a Prius?
The only thing those blue bins were the only thing those blue bins were being used for before I pushed the recycling
That's
move
right.
was for cricket stumps in summertime, to be honest. And anyway,
The single biggest reason Chris Judd, now that there's no third-party agreements for AFL footballers, he absolutely You rip the heart and soul out of footballers earning extra cash outside of football.
Just milk the shit out of it.
Chris Judd, what an honour.
Well done, mate.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you, gents. Thanks
Cheers,
for having me.
mate.
Ads back in a second.
This is Brownie's Podcast.
Welcome back to Brownie's Podcast. I love that, man.
He's a beauty, absolute beauty.
He's funny,
busy
John.
man. He's got 4 kids.
Shit.
4 kids. He obviously is an Instagram photographer for his wife, Beck, who's an absolute beauty, by the way. So they're good company.
He's probably one of those guys that until he finished footy, and he's done a bit of work for Triple M, but doesn't do much now. You never really saw just how humorous and relaxed and down to earth he was.
Yeah.
Really funny guy.
Absolutely.
Intelligent.
He had a few cracks at crafting that Chris Scott story with me the other night after about 38 scotches.
What sort of scotch are you guys cracking into?
Alan drinks the best. He drinks
Johnny
lark.
What?
Tasmanian lark, yeah. It's pretty high end, but no, absolutely. He was an absolute... I still think he was the... So Wayne Carey, growing up, was the best player I saw, and was fortunate enough to play with Michael Voss. But the best player I played against for the majority of our careers, I played against Carey for 1 year, but was Chris Judd.
Yep.
Yeah.
Imagine if he was on your team. I'm just saying that's what...
They wouldn't have been able to fit us in the salary cap. I wouldn't have thought that Brisbane team.
Hey, back to this week. It's grand final week. I'm pretty excited about it. I wanted a purebred Victorian grand final or a purebred interstate one, but we didn't get it.
Yeah.
No, 2 best sides throughout the course of the year made it through. I think this is going to be a cracking grand final.
Dog, that's true. That's absolutely true. But, like, the route to get here was like a 1-point win here, a 6-point... Like, it was such an even final series, really.
Yeah, well, GWS had every chance late in that game to win. Collingwood were magnificent, so the way they slowed the clock down, or quickened the clock up, I guess. But, GWS has got a bright future. And obviously at quarter time, a lot of Carlton supporters were booking their grand final tickets because the lines looked a little bit rattled until probably the 5 minutes ago in that first quarter. So you think, geez, what's going on here? If Carlton keeps playing at this brand of footy, it's going to be hard for Brisbane to come back, but I'm glad the best 2 teams are in it, no question about it.
And I think it'll be the better contest as well, these 2 sides. Quite often
could be high scoring.
Yeah,
the way
maybe.
they play, and a hot day, it could be open. Both teams' style lends itself to a faster, quicker, high-scoring game. Now, you would have thought the same thing would happen with GWS Collingwood, but I think day game, 27 degrees, there's an opportunity for a high-scoring one.
If you go back and look in the history of teams that went on to win a flag, quite often they got through a semi-final or a preliminary final only just.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? The year that Sydney Swans won it, Nick Davis kicked 4 goals that should have lost to Geelong.
Yeah.
Hawthorn in their 3-peat, they were gone for all money a couple of times, once against Adelaide and once against Collingwood, right?
Yeah.
And they look back after they've won the flag, and they go, we were really lucky to win the prelim. That was the harder game than the grand final. You know what I mean?
Do you think who's more likely out of the 2 losers, GWS or Carlton, to have the ultimate success next year?
GWS. They were a juggernaut.
Well, it's a good question because I think Carlton, only because on the back of, they got nothing out of Mackay and Curnow for the whole final series.
That's true.
So think about the upside for them.
It's interesting, Charlie Curnow, I saw a stat this morning that he only got targeted 6 times inside 50 for the whole final series.
Wow! I thought you were going to say for the preliminary final. For the whole final series.
Final series. So is that his teammates not kicking the ball to him, or is that Charlie just not getting enough in the right spots? I think it's more to do with Charlie not getting the right contest, because as a key forward, you've got to be in contests. You've got to be in contest, especially in finals. And unfortunately for Charlie, he just couldn't get involved throughout September. So he certainly have to go back to the drawing board, and this will be a learning experience for him. But he had a disappointing September.
Charlie Cameron had a shit game on the weekend.
He was a bit off with his goal kicking, wasn't he?
He should have kicked 3 or 4. He dropped the chest mark. He missed
that snap that dropped short. That was an odd one.
But
anyway,
I mean, as a small forward, more often than not, he takes those chances, and
a
because
gun.
they win, it never gets spoken about.
Yeah, true.
But if he does that on grand final day and they lose, it becomes a thing.
He could absolutely light them up.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah, he could light it up grand final day. It'd be just interesting what sort of matchup they got for him, the Pies, that's for sure. McStay's a huge out for the Pies. We didn't mention him, so I feel bad for him because obviously the opportunity he would have had to play in the grand final
against his old
club.
Man.
So bad luck to him because he was pretty important in that third quarter when the Pies started to make their comeback on the weekend.
But there's hard luck stories in every grand final. You know, this person misses because of injury or suspension or whatever it might be. It might be a fairy tale for John Noble to come back in potentially as the sub or something, who's been, who was dropped for the first final and played every game this year. So imagine him coming back in. That would really that'd be sweet.
Well, I saw it firsthand with Nigel Appin and Chris Scott. And Nigel Appin had broken ribs in the 2003 game, and it is the 20-year anniversary since we knocked over the Pies, so it's going to be a big week where a lot of these stories will get retold. But the most heartbreaking story and inspirational story was the same story in the rooms before the game. Back in those days, the team sheets had to be in 40 minutes before the game. 45 minutes out, they still weren't sure whether Nigel Lappin was playing, so obviously the emergency needs to get ready. Chris Scott had had his own injury problems that year, was stripped and ready to go. He was warming up just near me, and I remember stretching, and you saw the medical door, and the medical door opened. Lee Matthews walked out of the door, and obviously in there was Nigel Lappin and the medical staff. Lee made a beeline straight to Chris Scott and went over and tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Nigel's playing. Put your clothes back on."
Oh!
It was unbelievable.
Oh!
Like it was...
And were all the boys watching? Did everyone stop what they were doing and watch?
Well, obviously they knew what Lee was doing, and it was about that time, because we still didn't know. It was unbelievable, very vivid in my mind, and the way Chris Scott handled that, no wonder he's gone on to be a dual premiership coach. Just ultimate respect for that man in a heartbreaking situation. He went over there and did that, took it like a man, and then at the same time, inspirational when you looked over and saw Nigel Lappin walk out. He was like a gladiator.
Yeah,
walking out, you think, geez, now all of a sudden my pinky finger doesn't feel as sore today. I had a broken pinky finger, and it was just, I thought, how can we not lose? How can we not win today? A man's putting his body on the line like that.
I got some good news for us, guys. It's been 2 years in the making, but Thursday I finally got Sam Mitchell on the podcast.
Oh, really?
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
So how'd the negotiation go with Sam Mitchell? Do you remember the words?
I remember I asked him earlier in the year, and he said, dog, I'll push it back a little bit. How about
Firstly,
in the
who is
off-season?"
this?
And then I basically just left it up to JB to sort out the
It was interesting,
nitty-gritty.
that, wasn't it? Because I thought it'd be fantastic to have a current coach to do the grand final breakdown for us on Thursday. And funnily enough, I was at a function, and just prior to leaving to go into the function, Brown Dog said Sam Mitchell can't do the Thursday of grand final week. So I thought, that's interesting, because I'm going to meet Mitch. I said, Mitch, you're not available on the Thursday. He goes, no, it's okay. It's okay. He said, just earlier the better. And then I said, it's funny because Campbell Brown told me that he couldn't do Thursday. He said, who?
What is with you and your teammates?
No, I'm going to say I did 70% of that, and JB, he negotiated the finer details. But we're pretty rigid here. We've got a set time,
That's
11
right.
o'clock. We don't really change it for anyone.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm so jealous of Collingwood fans. Look at the party. Listen to the party they get.
Listen to this noise.
And listen to how many close games they've won.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a big army, isn't it?
It's amazing.
To get 97,000 there for a GWS Collingwood game is massive, because they're all Collingwood supporters.
Yeah.
I love when they've got great sense of awareness or sense of the moment when their team's struggling, but they're Collingwood.
And a lot of coaching with the minutes ago when Josh Dacos hit someone on the chest.
Yeah.
And the whole crowd saying, stop,
I know.
slow down.
They are very connected as a supporter base.
So here's the conundrum for Brisbane.
Yeah.
And we spoke about it earlier in the year. They've lost 14 of 15 at the G. Now, you reckon it doesn't matter because they were close last time they played? They still lost?
Well, I think from 2014 to 2018, they lost everywhere. They were just a shit team. And so you've got to sort of get rid of that 5-year period. You can only look at recently. Now, this year they got cleaned up by Hawthorn, but Hawthorn cleaned up Collingwood as well, convincingly at the MCG. I really believe the belief they got out of dominating Melbourne for essentially 90, 100 minutes of the game in about round 20. They walked away from that going, oh, actually, hang on now. MCG doesn't hold any fears. We know how to play this ground. It, in fact, should suit their game style. So I think they actually believe now the MCG doesn't hold any fears for them.
It'll be daunting, though, coming out 100,000 supporters when you know you've got, a ground that you haven't played well in. But on the flip side of that, they've bowled Collingwood over the last 6 times they've played them. Really? 4 at the Gabba, 2 at Marvel. Yeah. So as players, you're going in and saying, well, we've actually got this team's measure. Yeah. You just need to handle the occasion. Including
this year, they've beaten them twice, convincingly in the first game by 4 goals in the second game, Marvel. So, it'll be believable. At the end of the day, grand finals, yes.
Take your moments.
You want to be healthy, but you got to take your moments, and it's between the ears. Your team's got to settle. We look at Brisbane. Look at the first 20 minutes on the weekend.
Yeah, rattled.
They rattled, weren't they? Now, hopefully they've got that out of their system, but that can happen to a team. Yep. I feel as if Sydney last year were rattled early in the game.
And that was all over.
I know when Hawthorn knocked over Sydney back in 2014. Rattled. I know we keep talking about Sydney, but that can happen. 2003, when we beat Collingwood, we weren't the favourites that game. Mm-hmm. But 20 minutes into the game was over. Collingwood were rattled. So it absolutely can happen. The better team can be rattled on the day, so you just don't know.
Before we go to ads, which one of you sons of bitches can get me a ticket to the grand final?
Yeah. I think they're going for about $3,000.
I'll be right, actually. I'll watch on the telly.
Which is unbelievable. From the scalpers, I don't know.
Well, face value alone's about $700 this year.
Jesus!
It's outrageous.
So,
all right, I'm watching at home.
Once it goes through 2 or 3 sets of hands, it started to get north of $3,000. Imagine if it was Carlton Collingwood, it would have been north of $10,000.
Oh, that's so well put. 3 or 4 sets of hands. Ads. Back in a second.
This is Brownie's Podcast.
Welcome back to Brownie's Podcast. It's Jonathan's Cash Bonanza Week. Cashy's left, right and centre, and if you're new to our podcast, our producer Brody made a stupid bet with him that he lost, and it means that he has to drive Jonathan around to his various cashies on a tuk-tuk or a bike.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you doing this?
Yes, I refused to drive my car and let Brownie in my car, so I said...
Why?
Just out of principle.
Embarrassed about it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And so I have decided that I tried desperately to get a tandem bike.
Yeah.
And it turns out tandem bikes are very hard to get. And also, the risk of injury with a tandem bike is very, very high.
He one time on the Great Ocean Road, he ran into a car and the car came off worse. Safety's not an issue for Jonathan.
Car was towed, Dino.
Towed! You son of a bitch!
What I have got, and again, I promised that it would be a type of vehicle that I could take him around on. It is a slightly longer electric scooter, so I'm going to be at the very front holding the handlebars, and I'm trying to locate a chauffeur's hat. And then Brandon is going to go on the back and just have to hold me around the hips very gently. And then we're going to cruise down and take him to his various cashies.
Well, the thing is, a lot of them around the city, so that'll probably be... I'm thinking Thursday or Saturday. I've just got to wait till the calendar. Wait till I assess the calendar, Dino, and work out the various functions where I'm so busy. It may be Saturday morning. Who knows? It may be Saturday morning, so it could be a busy morning.
Hey, here's a question.
Start off the drink Friday night, driver.
Can we, at the end of the week, we'll get all your envelopes, and we won't know how much is in them, but you just let me pick one. We'll call it Cashy Bingo.
Like a little show. like a little mystery show bag. So just put your hand in there.
Absolutely.
We'll do our best.
So this is happening or what? Legit?
Yeah, I'm going to be driving around for a little while.
Right. Time for
Waterworld.
Yes.
I've got 2 Waterworlds, and not the greatest Waterworlds this week, but...
Mate, don't lead with that.
Yeah, excellent. Really set the stage for us.
Switch off the podcast now.
So a young lady who lives in Indonesia did a TikTok video. Her name was Lena Lutfiawati, and she identifies as a Muslim. She recorded herself and put on TikTok her saying a Muslim prayer and then eating pork. Now, eating pork is forbidden by the law of Islam.
Yep.
And I think Muhammad would have been very disappointed with that.
All right, let's not get too deep.
She ended up getting a $16,245 fine and 2 years in prison for eating
2 years in prison.
So that to me was what a world. And this is a little bit more
pork knuckle.
A bit of a morbid one. I need to ask her: was it really worth eating the pork?
Yeah.
Was she trying to prove it like she was sending a message?
Don't know.
Okay.
But that's TikTok bringing someone undone.
Yeah.
A Malaysian fried chicken cook Right, his
He's
name
really
was.
going global today.
Isn't he?
His name was. He's from China. His name is Louis UK. He was 58 years of age. Right, been cooking fried chicken in a massive wok of oil most of his adult life.
Okay.
Right. Unfortunately for Louis, he was cooking a chicken dish. He fainted. He went face first into the hot oil, and he was in there for quite a while. Some of the sous chefs and everything came and they pulled him out, but that was the end of Louis.
He deep fried his own head.
He deep fried.
Do you look like Freddie Krueger?
He did, and he passed due to wok. He got woked.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So what a world!
Every time he does What a World, I feel like it's Sam Newman's podcast. Anything could happen.
The family said he was at rock bottom.
All right, mate.
Just for that.
Degenerates, we'll see you before the grand final with an actual coach.
Yeah.
Sam Mitchell's going to be on the goddamn podcast.
Well, it'd be good. We just throw bullshit out there, don't
Yes,
we? All these assessments and strategies, but Sam Mitchell will be able to tell us exactly what's going to go on Saturday because he beat both these teams in the second half of the year, so he knows their weaknesses.
And thanks again to Chris Judd, and thanks for bringing the word of the day, flaccidity, to the podcast. Degenerates, see you later.
Clean yourself up, you little bitch.